Hi, and welcome to the Zero Wasted Days podcast. I am Suzanne Actison. I am a former C-level executive turned seven-figure serial entrepreneur. I'm a life-first business mentor, and I love helping women entrepreneurs merge strategy, feminine energetics, and embodiment to create outside-the-box business solutions and energetic solutions to their business challenges. I believe that it's time that we shift our perspective on business and life and see that our businesses are the means to us living life first. Reinventing the way that we go about our days as entrepreneurs, this podcast is designed for dream makers and action takers, and also those who value going slow and savoring the moments in between. This is the essence of living a zero wasted days life, and I welcome you to the Zero Wasted Days podcast. Back to this week's episode of Zero Wasted Days. I am just honored, and this is a very kind of super special episode. I think I say I'm super excited every single week, but this is a super special episode because I have Kate Northrup here with me in the studio for Zero Wasted Days. And Kate has formed such a pillar and a foundational part of my redefining who I am, what I wanted to do and contribute with the world, the impact I wanted to make, the work I was doing with women, all of you that are listening. And I think I found Kate's Dulet's book somewhere 4 or 5 years ago, and it has just become foundational to every single program that I have created. But first and foremost, it's become very integral to the way that I live my life. And having a blank slate to recreate everything, as a lot of who are listening here, it was just an opportunity to learn from somebody who has decided to go against the grain. And by going against the grain, she's really found a way to be able to go with the grain with cyclical living and doing less. And I'm just so honored to have you here, Kate. And thank you very much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. And I really love what you just said about going against the grain to go with the grain. That was really good. That was good.
But I always think when I talk about cyclical living and I talk about cycle syncing and tracking your energy, I always talk about going, in flow and as opposed to going against the grain. And then I came out with this, you've gone against the grain, and you came out with something that was very post-patriarchal and different to what anyone else was saying and doing, and brave and courageous to put that stake in the ground. And for me, it was going against the grain, and hopefully you're starting to see, and we are all starting to see the tides turn a little bit.
100%. My girlfriend was just reading Women's Health magazine, which is like super mainstream. And she was like, oh my God, you were so ahead of your time. There's an article on cycle syncing in there this month. Yeah. And I'm like, I got that from my mom. She came out with a book that talked about it in 1994. Yes. So it is cool to see how maybe those conversations have been initiated in a variety of circles early. But I love seeing how much more mainstream it is, because it needs to be. Yes. Our cycles, our bodies as women are the source of all human life. Like these cycles are responsible for every human life and animal lives too, in their own way. Yes. My aunt raises horses and all these animals. So I was asking her all about cat
animal world
the other day and dogs. So anyway, that's neither here nor there, but yeah, so I love it. And some people get all twirled out of, oh, I was the first, whatever. I'm like, no, nobody invented this. This is the goddess's work. And we need everybody talking about it. So 100%. The more the merrier. Let's get the word out.
Yeah. And I think also in watching your journey, and I'm very much an optimizer and an analytical person. So I'm always looking from like the behind the scenes kind of business. What is she doing? Where is she going with this? And I'm always watching.
Please tell me, because I never know.
I'm always just so interested to see what's the next step and how the journey is unfolding. And I didn't see this on your website before, but I love to go and trawl through before I do these episodes, go look and try to find some nuggets on people's websites. And because I think there's a lot of truth. Like we spend a lot of time on our websites condensing copy and like, how would I really want to find some 6 words and say everything that I do in that one heading. And I didn't know this was on there, but it said you have on the front of your website, whether or not you remember that this isn't on there or not. It says make a life, not just a living.
Yeah. And that's been a tagline since 2011.
So good. And what does it mean to you then? What does that really mean? And maybe you could take a step back as well and tell a little bit about your story.
Right.
Hopefully most people know who you are here, but if not, I kind of want to
Probably
like,
not. I'm only well known in a very tiny corner of the internet. So yeah, so make a life, not just a living, is really about very similar to your philosophy, life first, right?
Yes.
Why are we doing our work if not to support a life well lived? And like, certainly I am here to make an impact. And certainly there are times when making that impact comes before other things in my life, just because like when you're up against a book deadline or whatever, sometimes you're in a launch, like sometimes you got to stay a little late at the office. But in general, what I know is that when I am on my deathbed, in those final moments, I am not going to be thinking to myself like, man, I wish I was better known. I wish more people had bought my book. I wish I had gotten more done. For sure, I'm not going to think those things. And we know that there's been some beautiful work, such as Bronnie Ware's book, The 5 Biggest Regrets of the Dying, or that's not exactly the title, but as she talked about, though, the 5 biggest regrets are, I wish I had let myself be happier. I wish I had spent more time with the people I love. I wish I hadn't worked so much. I wish that I had, what was the other one? I don't know. Anyway, but those top 3, those are the ones that I always
relationships.
remember.
There's something about relationships.
Yeah, spent more time with the people I love, but maybe also shared more how I feel. I don't know. Okay. But anyway, generally speaking, I want to live that way. I've always known this. So I was hooking it into my story. The other day, I was taking a walk with my mom. She was visiting me here in Miami. And I was telling her this story, which is going to hook back to the older story. So I was telling her this story. I was like, yeah, Mom. And you might have heard me tell this story before, Suzanne, because it was part of the birth of Relaxed Money.
Okay.
And Mike and I were just in a real time of contraction. So Mike is my husband and also my business partner. And we were on a call with our therapist. And I was just in this like very well-worn loop around feeling pressure around money and providing for my family. As like the face of our brand, I just was in this loop of, I don't ever get to take a break. You can go down and you can drop out of life, but I don't get to drop out of life and blah, 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 on this loop. So our therapist said to me, okay, Kate, imagine that somebody has Mike's just come home and he said, okay, babe, I just have $10 million. Like we have $10 million just in cash. So that's what's happening right now. And David said, how would you feel? Imagine how you'd feel. I closed my eyes and I checked inside and I was like, oh God, this is painful to say out loud. I said, I'm really surprised by my answer. And my answer is I would feel dead inside. And I realized that I had been using stress and pressure as a stimulant to make me feel alive. And I told that story to my mom. And she was so funny. She goes, you certainly chose the right parents for that pattern. Because I grew up in a household,
strong doers.
Yeah, with parents who are both physicians, incredibly high achievers, checked all the boxes that you're supposed to check in terms of the grades, the Ivy League schools, the New England education, the private practice in medicine. Then my mom went on to write all these New York Times bestsellers. And so the environment I was raised in, though my parents were at my ballet recitals and my soccer games and like whatever, there was a general temperature or a general environment of constant stress and pressure that was tied to career achievement. And therefore somehow also tied to money. And so I made a decision very early on when I was like, I don't know, 16 or 17. I just said, I want to run my own business. That's a freedom-oriented business so that I can be with my kids, so that I can just spend time with my kids and like really be with them.
Yes.
And not have to work if I don't need to. Or if I don't want to, not have to work if I don't want to. And so make a life, not just a living. It really came from that. I think all of us on some level are trying to heal our parents. Here we are.
There's so much healing to be had, even in largely traditionally untraumatic upbringings. There's always so much stuff we're unpacking, and we could get into the nervous system stuff in a second. But I think it's so important also just to make that link between if everything in your family, and I talk about it similarly, various, very different upbringing, that achievement was so linked to success that we derive our self-worth from it. Really, at the end of the day, like we feel good, we feel worthy of love. When you come home from that basketball game and you've scored the high score
or and A plus,
yes, or whatever the thing is.
I remember coming home with an A- one time, and my parents said, "What happened?"
Oh gosh,
why the minus? And it's
yeah.
My God, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So this work, literally, what are we doing?
Yeah. And so this work clearly has a big factor in the legacy that you want to leave your girls.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I have a 5-year-old. I have a 7-year-old. I recreated, they're exactly the same age difference as me and my sister. Mm-hmm. So I inadvertently just recreated my family.
Which we often do.
Yeah. Common.
Yeah.
I look at them and I just want them to be themselves, whatever that is. I was just having a thought today, and I was voice memoing back and forth with a former client who's now become a friend. And I was just talking about how I heard this great quote the other day, which is, I don't remember who said it, so sorry, but it is, we are not a drop in the ocean. We are the ocean in a drop. Like we are each God, this like little sliver of God. And we are meant to be this one expression of the divine. And if we are not living out our authentic truth, our integrity, like who we actually are, there's like a piece of God missing from the planet. And so I think about that with my kids, and I just want them to be them because that's who they were here to be. And that may not be academic achievement, and it may not be accumulating financial material wealth. Like that might not be their thing. So I just want to support what their thing is, and they're little, so it's unclear. So I just support what they seem to be into in the moment.
And I do love now, it seems to be more nowadays that there's more acceptance that even the job that they might get doesn't even exist right now. So whereas we kind of groomed into various different avenues, the jobs that they may end up in now are just, we haven't a clue because it's moving that fast.
100%. Yeah.
And I do love how you bridge the kind of world of spirituality and science just impeccably. And would love to know what clearly that's not just one day you woke up and you were dropped into the woo, or you obviously grew up in a household with doctors. What's that journey been like to becoming this kind of real intersectional being?
Intersectional being. Well, I love learning stuff. I am just always, I left my girlfriend a voice memo today. I'm such a nerd. And I was like, I'm listening to this podcast, and I just started this new book last night, and I'm so excited to go for a walk with you and discuss all the ideas. And I'm so grateful to be alive at a time where I have access to so many deep thinkers that I can read their work and listen to their work and then sit around and talk about it with other interesting people and digest and discuss and take my own notes and then integrate it and share it in my own curated way. And so I think I've just like always been like that. I will be honest. I did grow up. The data shows us that in terms of academic achievement, the greatest indicator of a child's success in that area, and we could debate if that area is important or not, is actually just the number of books in their home. And now I think that is correlational, not causational. If you're living in a household that's not readers, that's not engaged in education, like setting up a bookshelf in that home is not going to, like, it's not the book. The books are the results of the kind of household. So just really engaging with the world. And I think that curiosity because to me, like following the thread of curiosity is life force for me. And actually, it's really helped me replace that using pressure and stress as stimulus to feel alive. Instead, it's really been transitioning to using the spark of curiosity and inspiration as my fuel, as my stimulant. And that's way more fun and sustainable and better for my health. So but I will just want to give credit where credit is due. I grew up witnessing the creation of my mom's body of work. And she's like one of the main people who put the mind body connection on the map and was such a pioneer. And so I was just in that. And my mom still to this day, when you go to her house, it's hysterical. Every surface has books that are open to a page with like random notes stuck in. And then she has these notebooks around that'll have 3 words written down. And it doesn't really make any sense to anybody else, but it's a bit of a nutty professor vibe. And so I guess that was the vibe. And my dad is like a hardcore learner. He's just always reading and researching. And so I think I just grew up with that. It was just normal.
That's a curious mind, right? When you think about a curious mind, I have that many books at my bedside, and
always.
I think, how many new journals do we have? And we start a program, and
I have 4 of them on my desk right now.
I think I'm going to trump that. I think there's a few more on mine. I think you advocate for a lot of things, but your roots, and it is sitting behind me. They are behind on the bookshelf. Your roots are strongly planted in teaching women to do less, which is the name of not your first book, second book, isn't it? Because My Love Story was first one. But why do you think this work is so important? And can you say what is next for your do less movement?
Yeah, imparting the importance of doing less for women, I think, because most of us have been enculturated to believe that our purpose is to be of service. And while I think on a spiritual level, our purpose is actually to be of service. So it's like a both and. Right?
Yeah.
But in what way? I believe my career and my raising my kids and whatever, like being that is about me being my most expressed version of myself, which ultimately is of service to the collective, but not in service. Like it's my job to hand make every meal from scratch if I don't like to do that, which I don't, and make sure that all of my friends have their emotional needs met. But when I don't, make sure that all the laundry is done perfectly, that like I've listened to my sister complain about that I've cared for my parents' emotional needs. That's how we've been raised as women, that our job is to meet everyone else's needs. So I think there's a difference between being of service on a more macro level and then making it our business to meet everybody's needs. And that's where we get our sense of satisfaction from.
Yeah.
So just because culture has told us that does not mean it's true. And what you end up with is a lot of women who are overwhelmed, anxious, depressed, and feel empty inside from a culture that has told us that our purpose is to meet other people's needs and to be selfless. And then why do you think we lose ourselves? We lose ourselves because we've been taught that the highest virtue as a woman is to be selfless. Interestingly enough, I just learned last night that the root word of the word virtue is vir, V-I-R, which means man. So as a woman, just when we look at the etymology, it's just so fascinating to see how patriarchy has brainwashed us to believe that we have to prove something through doing. And then we had, of course, multiple feminist movements, but the one that happened in the 80s sent like our moms to work, possibly, certainly my mom. And at the time, what was required, because it was still very much seen that women were taking the place of a man in that job. They had to not only be really good at their job, but also do it better than a man could do, and also be a better man than they could. And so we've ended up with a situation which spawned the whole fair play movement. No, it's not called fair play. What's that documentary in the book? Maybe it is called fair play. No, yeah.
Oh, I can't put my finger on it.
Maybe it is. Anyway, it's a book, it's a documentary.
Yeah.
Where there's a whole movement around reallocation of the householding responsibilities because of the profound invisible labor that women have been doing, because it's been assumed that that's the role. And so the whole do less has vast political implications, as well as personal and health implications and all the things, right? And so it's important for women to do less so that we can have more energy and time for the things that really matter. And that is going to be individual. But when we identify that for ourselves, when we focus in on what really matters, we can know for sure that when it really sparks something in us, that's because we are following our divine instructions and we are making the mark that we're meant to make, which may be making heart-shaped peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day. And it may include other things as well. Exactly. That might, So anyway, could be a lot of things.
Yes. And has the evolution of your own curiosity and learning and knowledge and the evolution of this do less movement for you, as it has also morphed into how you run your business? So you clearly have a business strategy, and I can see, I'm almost answering your question for you. I can see that you've, over the last 5 or 6 years, really merged energetic practices because they've become ever more present for you and important for you. And I can see that the strategy is so strongly fused with the energetic practices. So is this the way that your do less world is going, or your world is going?
My primary business strategy is to follow what makes me feel alive. And then from there, we bring in a ManyChat chatbot funnel and a Pinterest strategy and an ad strategy.
Can I just say, I was so impressed by your ManyChat chatbot.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the bomb. As the analytical person, I'm like, look, it's asking me if I want to do this. Look, I was talking to my husband. I'm like, look, it's so cool. Smart. I know. So do less.
And super effective, I want to say. So if anyone's listening, feel free to send me a DM. If you send me the word melt, you'll see how it works.
Yeah. So anyway. Good. Sorry, I had to interrupt because that was just a highlight for me.
So it's what's the bigger vision? And the bigger vision is always driven by what I'm excited about.
Yeah.
And then of course we bring in, okay, great. Then what's the copy arc? And then what are the key objections of our ideal customer? And how can we meet them where they are? So it's always going to be supported by beautiful, practical marketing strategy, but the overall direction is very energetic and very much based on me just tuning into what I'm excited about and curious about.
Yeah. And so the world of, as you've introduced Relaxed Money, we were just talking about the launch of that recently. That's obviously lit your heart up and has made you feel alive personally, and you want to share that with the world. Because not everybody is, an energetic work for me is a major thing. I've just launched an energetic program in my own business, but not everybody understands it. How do you personally fuse, today, for instance, nervous system regulation together with your business or with your life,
when I'm actually running my business,
or just through your day, how are you regulating, and what's the importance of that?
I will be honest. Sometimes I think about what I teach and I'm like, am I living this? Let me make sure I'm living it before I say something about this. And the truth is, of course, the answer is yes. At least in my case, the answer is yes. But the truth is I'm not someone who, I'm really about integration as opposed to compartmentalization. And I think that a lot of times we can have this idea that it's time for my nervous system regulation over here, and then time for my business over here. But What I've noticed is every day I do red light therapy, for example, which is like really beautiful for collagen production and immune system and also nervous system regulation. And then at the same time, I lie on my biomat, which is like full of amethyst crystals and does some sort of electrical something or other. So I do that at the same time. And I crave it. I crave it. Sometimes I do it twice a day. So that's something I do every day. And then a lot of the times though, while I'm doing it, I am coming up with what I'm going to post on Instagram that day, or I'm writing my newsletter on my phone, or I'm answering emails. So that's like one that's integrated into it.
Yeah.
I will notice if I just have a moment of pause in the car when I'm driving around, I practice breathing into my lower back ribs and just think, okay, can I breathe into the car seat behind me? Sometimes I just turn off any podcast, any sound, no music, and just like that. Or this is very energetic. I often, when I'm walking the girls to school and walking them home, we live like 3 minutes from the school, I turn my phone on airplane mode because holding it, I just know there's like the EMFs, and I know that like electromagnetic field of the Wi-Fi and the cell service and the Bluetooth is totally going to screw with my nervous system because I am very sensitive. So I'll walk into a room that's just like slightly something, and I'm just like, oh, I can't be in here. Yeah, I'm so sensitive. And so little things like that, I do a lot that's minimizing stimulus, which is very healing for my nervous system. Yeah. So those are some examples. There's a million. If I move my body, I cry if I need to cry. I laugh a lot. You know, I was driving to acupuncture today and I like cried and laughed out loud listening to a podcast. That sort of thing that like maybe I used to feel ridiculous. Yes. I just know how regulating it is to let those emotions all the way out and all the way through. So I'll let myself like go into things fully instead of holding back. And that's very helpful as well. Yeah. And when we have a regulated nervous system, which by the way, I shared this, it's a great quote from Britt Frank. A regulated nervous system does not mean you're calm all the time. It means you're at choice. So it means feeling like you have choices about how to respond to the stimulus in your environment. And sometimes you might be excited and have a regulated nervous system. Like if you met me, you wouldn't be like, wow, Kate is such a calm person. I'm really enthusiastic. I'm like a puppy. But that can be a regulated state because it's not like I'm hyped up as a reaction. I'm just excited about life. That's right. And so why am I saying that? Oh, because when we run our businesses from a relative state of nervous system regulation, knowing that's a journey and it's ever expanding, this is not a destination, this is a dance, that we are then like actually doing the work we're meant to do. We're not proving something. We're not like running our businesses from our conditioning, and we're not running from proving something. Like we are so close to the essence of who we are, and stuff gets easier. Yes. Yeah. Or like sometimes it's not easy, but it hurts so good. You know what I mean?
I love that quote by Britt Frank. It's clarifying when you think about nervous system. And I just think it's also just so interesting. The more you dive into this work, like you just see how each of our bodies and our blueprints are so different from person to person. You said you're hypersensitive to EMF signals. And I see that in every single one of my clients. That's why I actually really like one-on-one work, because I get to really dive into how unique someone is at a personal level and figure out what the solution is for them, business wise, business model, programs, and then let's overlay the energetic stuff on it. And everybody is just so vastly unique. It's fascinating. And like you said, it's really not about a destination. It really is about this dance. And the more we see this, our businesses as things that keep us alive, that fuel us, as opposed to, I mentioned this in a masterclass I did yesterday, we are so conditioned before we get into entrepreneurship to that achievement and that success and that feeling good with all of those ticks of boxes. But then even when you're in a career, you get the pats on the back every 6 months, that, promotions and pay rises. And then you end up in this world of entrepreneurship, and it's lonely.
Yeah.
And there's no one telling you at the water cooler that you're doing a good job, and then you're going to learn all the things in the marketing and the selling and the promoting and everything. No wonder women feel, and not just women, I'm sure men as well, but women in our world are overwhelmed. Yeah. So this work is so essential.
Yeah. And when you are able to regulate yourself and essentially signal to your body that you're safe, you have all your full capacity to make great decisions, and you largely won't feel so overwhelmed anymore. Yeah. Overwhelm is a sign of dysregulation and possibly having too much to do. But certainly the combo. But if you are regulated, it's so much easier to look at your list and be like, oh, this is important, this is not.
And that's not, yeah. And over 45 minutes ago, when time was ticking, because it's 9:00 here at night, and my kids, I'm trying to put them to sleep, I could feel my triggers going, and having the tools in my toolbox to be able to go, okay, this is what I need to do. I was able to get back to homeostasis and alignment to be able to come and talk to you.
Exactly.
So good.
Exactly.
So the women that are in my world, and that obviously that are in yours as well, are entrepreneurs who look and compare and numb themselves on social medias to death. And there's always the question of why some women and entrepreneurs achieve fast success online and others struggle for years at gaining momentum. Why do you think that is?
What an interesting question. I think that like different people's trajectories is one of life's great mysteries. This is odd, but within the last 3 weeks, I have heard the personal stories of two people I know pretty well tell me about circumstances in the last several years where they just like overnight received $1 million. And so their trajectory of financial success was just really like vertical. Yeah. And so I think to myself, like, oh, is it because they're good manifestors? Is it because, what, like, I don't know. I think a lot about when you ask me this question, I think about human design, and I think about astrology, and I think about soul lessons. And I believe that all of us has our own curriculum. And we don't know, like when we're looking at success online, we are taking one measure of this tiny aspect of being a human, which isn't even relevant to most people's lives, but let's say it is if you're an online coach. Yes. It's like we live in this, for anyone listening, I just want to remind us, we live in this like very bizarre little bubble of humanity it's small. So even though I understand it can feel like really major and really important. Yeah. And I also understand that for some of us, this is how we feed our children. So yes, I also I'm one of those people. Yeah. However, there's so many things I want to say. One of them is, so I'm one of the OGs. Like I started my online business in 2010, 2009, 2010. Before people even really talked about their businesses on social media. Like it was before Instagram existed. We sometimes would post our blogs on our personal Facebook profile just for fun for our friends.
Which only started in 2007.
Yeah, which only started in 2007. Yeah, I was a college student and I was on Facebook in 2004, but it was because it was like part of school.
Yeah. Okay.
But that was like very different. Yeah. It was a way to look up the person in your chemistry class so you could get the homework. So anyway, so weird. So I have been around long enough to know that this is all pretend. Or it can be. It is very easy to quote unquote hack the system and use the hall of mirrors of humanity that is social media to play into the particular reflection of our unmet desires that make up the Instagram algorithm and play into that to use the algorithm to grow. And that's true of some, I just want to say like, that's true of some people. I also know some people who just happen to have a post get reposted by like Kim Kardashian. And then all of a sudden I know several people where all of a sudden they just skyrocketed because some massive celebrity found their thing and which is great.
Yeah.
Why does that happen? I think it has to do with their own unique soul path.
Yeah.
And that's all. I think we all have our stuff, right? Like we all have, Jupiter just went into Taurus, and wherever Taurus is in our charts, we're all getting a lot of fertilizer right now, like gifts, like this is going to be our easy spot for the next year. And we all have that in our life in one area or another. And I think for some people, it just like aligns with whatever area has to do with fast, easier online growth. And for some of us, that's not actually our area of gifts, but our area of gifts is something totally different that might just be more invisible.
I'm going to have to go back and listen to that whole answer once again, but that was gold. That was really good. It's just so interesting.
And I'm sure, are there there are little things that I do.
Sure.
For sure. Like when I do one of my little dancing reels on Instagram, I choose a trending audio that has less than 10,000 reels made with it on purpose.
Yeah.
Because I know if I'm going to do the thing anyway, I might as well do this extra 100%. Little thing that I know is going to help it be seen by more people, because this work really matters to me.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying growing online is a bad thing. That's what I do.
Part of how we do how we do what we do. Yes.
It's part of how we reach more people. It's one of essentially an infinite number of ways that we can reach more people. And I think it's a smart one because it's totally no barriers to entry, as long as you have a phone and an internet connection.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I know we have like a thread through the two of us with a person that we know, my coach, and she's been in your programs. The importance of other women in working in collaboration with you to, I don't want to say get to where you got to, but to co-create this life and journey has been the most important thing for you. One of them, top three for sure.
Yeah. I hired my first coach in 2010. That really kicked my butt. That was very intense. Their particular coaching style was just really intense, and it was beautiful. And then since then, I have probably at all times in some manner or another, whether it's like an online program or a full-on coaching thing, or being part of a mastermind, or being part of something, like I'm pretty much part of something at all times, whether I'm paying for it or whether it's peer-led.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to live without deep connection with other ambitious women. It's like my kids, my husband, my relationship with God, and then like my relationship with other women who I adore. It's just, it's everything. And they see my areas where I'm just not seeing myself. They give me loving smackdowns. They redirect me. They remind me. I can call them up and say, I need a pep talk right now. I'm like, I've completely forgot. I feel like I'm the worst, whatever it is. And I just think it's totally okay to need that and want that. And there is something for me that has happened where just by virtue of being around women who are playing an expanded game has automatically gotten me to up my game. And it certainly financially can be one measure of that, but in a lot of different ways, in my marriage, in my parenting, getting around people who have what you want and who are creating it in a way that feels like it aligns with your values makes the path so much faster, so much more fun, so much easier. Like, why would we not use the ability to co-regulate with other people to ease our path? It's a very do less strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is so powerful. That's the sisterhood and being shown what's possible, being energetically lifted. It's
getting to see under the hood.
Yeah.
There's stuff that people talk about in private Zoom calls or private retreats or one-on-one calls that they just are never going to share in a blog post or a podcast or on Instagram. And I've been privy to so many of those conversations and I'm always so deeply grateful because I'm like, oh man, you just saved me like 5 years. Thank you. Just like with those little
Fast
snippets that are
track.
just,
Yeah.
they're not for public consumption, but behind closed doors in those more precious spaces, it makes sense to share, whether it's financial stuff or stuff that happened with team, or it's so good. It's so good, that level of intimacy.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate. Since I've started on this journey, I've always had a coach or been in multiple programs, and just investing in myself has just been the thing that has totally just feel like you're supported. Just feel like I just can't think of doing it any other way.
And from a money perspective, I do think it's really important to talk about to invest, to not invest. And again, I've invested a lot of money. We do every year. It's a huge line item, is leadership development. And I like to give people, and I don't know what you teach people, so I apologize if this is not in alignment. You can edit it out.
I'm sure it is.
I think a good gauge is 10% of your business revenue invested in leadership development, education, coaching, masterminds, whatever it is. And so that to me is a nice gauge to think about. So as you grow, putting that amount aside in your leadership development fund is a great gauge for how much.
Yeah. I think there's sometimes, and I totally agree. Like you don't want it to be all of it. There's sometimes where you double down for a period and your expenses go up it's like anything. You're investing in your business, and it doesn't always align completely with that 10%, but I completely agree. Like there definitely should be some portion of it.
Some portion for sure. And if somebody's thinking like, oh God, this is so much, you might look at the overall numbers and be like, actually, that's way less than that. Oh, okay. I'm okay. I'm just trying to help people feel more safe.
Totally. It's all about feeling more safe with money.
All about feeling more safe with money. Yes.
Which is a whole other episode.
Yeah.
And I've got two little questions left for you, and they are a little bit more personal. And I just want to hear, because when I read about your freedom tour, and it mirrored so much of me leaving for Australia for 1 month and staying there for 17 years, marriage, 3 kids, businesses, major dreams coming true. Tell me a little bit about your freedom tour, because I just love reading your personal story about meeting Mike. And
in 2010, after I hired that coach, I realized that I was living out of alignment in a variety of areas of my life. And I decided to sell the apartment that I was living in, that I owned with my mom, and go on this road trip of an undefined length, just open-ended. And I decided to call it the Freedom Tour. I was a blogger at the time. That's how I would have identified. I was like a blogger and an affiliate marketer, essentially. I just sold other people's stuff, which is the greatest thing ever. But I was going to go by myself. But then I got this very strong intuition to invite this guy to come with me, who I really barely knew. I had met him 2 times in person. But I got this strong intuition. So I just sent him this text message, and I was like, hey, I just had a fun idea. Do you want to drive across the country with me?
As you do.
Within 24 hours, he had said yes. And he had laid out the entire itinerary.
Oh
we
my
were
God.
supposed to go for 5 days, and 5 days turned into 10 months. And he never left. And he is my husband. We've now been together that was 2011. So we've now been together for 12 years and run our company together officially since 2013.
So beautiful. I love it. Yeah. And following your gut and following that intuition, it literally changed your life.
Yeah. Especially when it doesn't really seem like it makes sense. That's how you know it's going to be real.
Yeah. You don't know how you don't know those steps at all.
Yeah.
But you just go.
Yeah.
So good. And my very last question for you is a bit fun, and me living truly in my values is something that's so important. And I bring my clients back to it all the time. And one of my values is spirit of adventure. And I realized I was living very much out of alignment when I had a bricks and mortar store after I left running the agency back in whatever year that was, 2014. And I couldn't flap my wings when I had a store and live in my values every day. And knowing what adventure really means to me, I just think it's such an interesting question to ask other people what adventure means to them. So I would love to know. And so for some people, I've had answers where it's very much what's on my back doorstep adventure. And for some people, it's globetrotting. So what does it mean to
Oh,
you?
for me, it's just venturing into the unknown and having novel experiences, which I can have by myself in my office through books and podcasts and travels into my own psyche. And so it's always expanding my edges of what I've experienced before and going beyond what I've known and what I've experienced before, and increasing that capacity to feel safe while experiencing something unfamiliar.
Love that. So good. So it's
But
not...
I also really like to travel and like get away.
It's not like, an island off the coast of Thailand or something like that necessarily. But I love that. It's a very introspective curiosity. That's beautiful. I love it. Listen, Kate, I really appreciate you taking this hour in your day. I can't wait for my audience to actually hear this episode. It's just been really nice to personally connect with you. And yeah, I'm just very appreciative of your time and the energy that you give everything that you do.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Zero Wasted Days. I truly hope that you found it to be valuable and inspirational as you create and you grow your own business and work towards living more life first. I would love you to subscribe, to like this video, and of course, if you have any comments, drop them in here below. Also, if you tag me on socials, I would love to get to know you. I love connecting with my audience, so be sure to tag me at Suzanne Actison or at @ZeroWastedDays_, and I will see you inside the DMs as well as here for the next episode next week.